Hockey Picks and Bets. I'm your host, DJ Mitchell, here to go over the exhilarating 3-game slate. It's a Friday. I'm getting out of work a little bit early on Friday, so I'll be ready to go. 3 games, really excited. If you don't follow me on Twitter at DJ_Mitchell94, I'm going to be having hopefully a lot more content. It's been a lot more fun with all the books being legalized in New York. It helps a lot. So I'm really excited. I mean, I think so far this year, I've done a good job. I hope in teaching a little bit more strategy. And that's the number one thing I want to do on my Twitter page. I've started the Hockey Assist Network, which is something that it's going to eventually come together a bit more. I'm trying to sort of flow everything through myself right now and eventually move it over there. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to be doing an additional show. It's not going to be coming out the same day you're listening to this. It's coming shortly. It's going to be kind of a 2-part in one episode on like long odd bets, what we're looking for, and like why you might place something that's really high, plus 300 plus type of team in the NHL bet. And the other one is going to be just on same game parlays in general. I think it's a really important topic to go over. And there's a lot to cover there. And I don't want to get into it right now. That's coming to you shortly. But 3 games tonight. We have started off with Dallas at Florida. This is a game that I was really hoping would be at a 6, but it's a 6.5. And it really is probably my favorite game of the night as far as total is concerned. I think Florida just is going to automatically pop almost every time. I've become convinced of that. And Dallas has just been playing really freaking good. So it's hard for me to want to tout it super heavy because 6.5 is a lot to ask for. I'm probably not going to be placing it in any capacity. It just doesn't really seem worth it to me. And I will be, I'd be the first to admit that I think it's a fine bet. I think if you take that as a solo, not parlayed with a bunch of stuff bet, I think it's fine. But I'd rather focus it on the Florida side here and maybe get action on that as if it moves a little bit closer to where I'd like it. Right now we have it as a -185. I am of the mindset that might change a little bit. And if I can find it closer to the 160 mark, 150 mark, that's where I might take it myself, probably as a straight bet. Other than that, let's get to some of the news and notes. Florida did return to the lineup Sam Bennett. They got a lot of guys back in the top 10. And I mean, frankly, the last game out against Vancouver, they got outplayed. I don't think there's any other way to put it. They should have probably lost that game, and goaltending, worked out in their favor. They were expected to have 2.9 goals, and they scored 5. They had a huge first period. I had the first period and money line bet on them that was boosted over on Caesars, and it hit. And I'll be honest, it shouldn't have hit. Sometimes you get lucky, and that's where skill can take over a game. And, they get that early lead, and that also kind of leads into the flow of the game in general. And that's why I think Vancouver ended up shooting so many shots. But, they did get outmatched. I thought I watched a lot of that game, and I think I'll be honest, we sometimes get lucky, and that's all you need. But they really did, roll out 4 lines a little bit more evenly once they got up. Reinhart, Barkov for Hagee, Huberdeau, Bennett, and Duclair. It's really, I want to get in heavy on Bennett. He only had 2 shots, 1 on goal and 3 get blocked, which is just, a tough break if you did bet him. I honestly, I kind of very minorly, a couple people touted his under 3.5 as like a maybe consider this on the prize, on the Prize Picks and all those other sites like that, because it kind of seemed like a big ask in this game. And if he's going to be at 3.5, it's tough for me to take, but I do have him as in his past 10 games as one of the highest iCourse per 60 players. So you might consider jumping back onto it in this game script. Dallas is, one line that's really, really strong. And then, a couple lines that aren't great. And if you look at their last game against Seattle, they win 5-2. And it was almost the same story where they, they get the lead, they kind of sit on it, but Hintz and Pavelski and Robertson were just awesome. They combined for 4 goals. They're absolutely rolling, but if they're not going to get there, and I think this is a spot where, power versus power, they might not do it. I just don't think I'm going to buy the narrative that this is the best line in hockey forever. And it's a really good line. And I think that it could be something that in a DraftKings type of situation you could consider, but I'm not going to play it. I'm just going to play the Florida side here and move on. And look into the props a little bit more, but there's nothing that jumps off the book. I'm hoping that Bennett's line continues to go down. That 1 shot on goal game should help us. So moving forward to game number 2, Anaheim at Minnesota. This is, a lot of news and notes kind of game. It's a game that's sort of, I would say, very, there's nothing here that it's going to jump off the page as far as expected goals are concerned, because Minnesota and Anaheim have been missing so many players that it's just like, oh, okay, well, so all of the models now for the past 10 are just not sure what these teams are anymore. When you miss your best, Zegras and Kaprizov, like those guys are going to crush expected goals for a team because they're so incredibly talented, but we should be getting all of them back. Zegras has been back for a couple of games now for Anaheim. On the Minnesota side, Joel Eriksson tested positive for COVID. He'll be replaced by Victor Rask, and Kaprizov, Greenway, and a couple others will be back. It's possible Golodowski as well. Not that he's a big, pusher of anything besides being a decent defensive player. But with all that being said, this game sets up, I think, to be a fair under bet, especially if you can get it at 6. Right now it's 5.5, and I think I'm fine laying it, but I'm not overly bullish on it just because of, like I mentioned, that you're getting a lot of really good offensive power back, and we probably won't have Gibson. It doesn't sound like he's going to clear, but that was one thing I could not really get a good grasp on. So let me try to look into that while I'm continue to talk here. But Anaheim rolled out a bit of a different look. They moved Milano up with Getzlaf and Terry, and they had Comtois with Zegras and Raquel. I don't know if that's going to stick. And the reason being is they lost 4-1, and the Getzlaf line gave up 3 goals against. And that normally means you're probably not going to stick with the same lineup going forward. So we're not sure what we're going to get. Cam Fowler's been like one of the leaders in ice time in the NHL over his past 10. He had 27 minutes and 35 the game before that. He is not a great rates player, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think you could, it's foolish to say that if you're playing Anaheim, he could fit in nicely. He's 4,400. So I think if you're playing the Ducks, he makes sense, because if they're going to get there in a 3-game slate, you probably think the fourth piece is a guy that's playing nearly 30 minutes a night and power play 1. On the Minnesota side, like I said, we should be getting back to essentially normal. Hartman with, I'm guessing Kaprizov and Zuccarello is going to be the plan there, as long as Kaprizov is 100% in, which it sounds like is the case. That might be a good way to get different on this slate in general, because Colorado, the next game we're going to get to, is going to be really, really heavily owned, and probably for good reason. So if you end up, making one lineup and you're going for GPP only, trying to win 10K, I wouldn't suggest running 3-4 Colorado guys, because it's almost impossible to do. In regard, and like I've mentioned, every time I do these small slates, if you're playing DraftKings and you're not running a 4-man stack, you're basically cutting your odds of winning first place down, I would say, by 10 to 15, maybe 20% of a chance of you winning the slate. You're either trying to pick out a bunch of guys that are just going to score and you're going for a lottery ticket, and that rarely, like I said, lottery ticket never works, or you're going to try to go with the math, and the math is always leading to 3-game slates having at least a 4-man stack. So I think Minnesota gives you an avenue to do it. I think there's a theory behind that Kaprizov line being really freaking good and having a chance to win it. With that, everything I just said there, I'm going to be checking the props tomorrow. I'm definitely going to be considering Kaprizov in the first game back. We've seen these guys coming back and the props just not really remembering how good they are. It's like they sit out for a week, and whatever the algorithm is doing on DraftKings and et cetera is just not understanding that they didn't do anything because of COVID. I don't understand it. So hopefully we get a really nice line on Kaprizov. The final game of the night is Arizona at Colorado. This is going to be a game I might, kind of sort of recap in the mini series, like I said, of this kind of strategy stuff. We have Colorado minus 500 at home against Arizona, who just, beat Toronto, with one of the craziest games to look at on Hockey Biz I've ever seen. But they did beat Toronto at home. At home. I'm not gonna assume anything's going to lead me to placing money on Arizona at plus 370. It's something that, like I kind of alluding to now, and I'm going to get to the theory behind why you might consider it. But this is an incredibly tough spot for me, because the only way I would consider it in any capacity is if we had confirmation that it's Vejmelka in net, because he has been, probably the best 9-10 save percentage goalie ever. Like it's you know, but maybe the best 4-win goalie ever. Like it's kind of crazy. And I kind of expect him to be in. I saw something that was pretty certain it would be Wedgwood, but he's in COVID protocol, so I kind of doubt it. But yeah, so Wedgwood almost definitely isn't going to be in. So if he's in, I mean, you could say, well, it happened last time, but man, you know, that was a game that the expected goals were Toronto 5.4 and Arizona 2, and it ended up being 2-1 Arizona. I think if you do take Arizona, you just take the under with it because that's the only game script that I believe makes any sense. So yeah, I'm not touching the lines at this point. I'm going to look into it again tomorrow. May reconsider, check my on Twitter. I'll let you know if I do place the bet. The over under 6.5, it just feels thin to me. Yeah, Colorado can do that all on their own. I know that for sure, but looking at the lineup, there's no Landeskog. They moved Valeri Tushkin to the top power play, so he might be the piece that you can fit in at 4,400 to make it fit. I do think that some people that don't play Colorado 1 will just play Colorado 2. Kadri, Tushkin, power play correlated. If you get that with a Makar, that makes a lot of sense to me. Makar is really expensive at 7,400, but it's a contrarian. You know, you think the McKinnon, Rantanen, Burakovsky unit, because Burakovsky makes it affordable, is going to be, 3x the ownership on that second line. We now know that Kadri and Tushkin and Makar are all power play correlated. So all you really need is Kadri passing to the point of Makar tipped in by Tushkin, and you've just kind of given yourself a crazy better chance of winning the slate. And I think everyone could agree that could happen. And that's where Kadri, that's what Kadri does. If you watch the power play, he does a lot of the kind of, I would say, cycling. It normally comes through him and Makar to feed a McKinnon or Rantanen with a shot. But if Makar takes it, that's sort of the narrative. So with everything I just said, I'm not touching that Arizona game probably at all, except for I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice not to include something in DFS. So my favorite bet of the night, I do think it's the Florida side. I'm hoping to get better odds on it. That just seems like a spot that could end up being good to capitalize on. If I'm betting anything other than that, it's probably, oh man, I really think that's the only thing I'm heavily on as far as sides and over-unders. I don't really see a lot of value on anything else right now. And I could consider Minnesota, but man, that minus 165 just doesn't feel good. Anaheim's a better team than that. As far as props are concerned, like I said, Bennett, Kaprizov, and maybe even a Tushkin goal prop, if it's somewhere around the 250 to 300 mark, that seems to be fine. And I'll be posting everything that I actually am going to put in tomorrow. I'll post it for you. I don't love to run parlays, but once in a while I will. If you want to hear more, the other thing I was considering, and I could do in the future, is a round robin type of explanation. I had someone mention it to me because I mentioned it on Twitter. I'm like, you could round robin this if you'd like. Some people don't know what that is. So if you don't know what a round robin is, you want to learn more about that and how instead of giving yourself a parlay, you can play a round robin and get a chance at that big money while still giving yourself a bit of a cushion in case of not everything hitting. Definitely let me know. I'll keep doing these strategy videos because they're fun and I hope everyone's learning. I'm learning every day. That this is like, we're all learning together. Like that's how I look at this, and I want to be able to give all the strategy and best advice I possibly can. So thank you for listening, and follow the Mayo Media Network, follow Jake and Cecil, and rate, review, comment. You know what to do. If you haven't done it yet, please. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk soon. See ya.